One of the most important and understudied aspects of the Armenian genocide is the role of women. The history of so far Armenian genocide scholarship is mainly written by men until recently, and it's only recently that there's been an increasing interest in the role of women during the Armenian genocide and its aftermath. There are certain reasons for this. There are very few accounts by women. It's important to look at these different experiences, not only from the perspective of how the suffering and the challenges faced by Armenian women were different, but also from the perspective that Armenian women played a key role in the resistance effort against the Ottoman authorities, whether that's armed resistance, but more importantly, a resistance through humanitarian relief work, resistance through secretly smuggling or hiding children, creating orphanages. There are many examples that we know from this period in between 1915 and 1916 of Armenian women often standing up against Turkish officers and gendarmes. One such example is from the concentration camp in Meskeneh along the Euphrates River, where two Armenian women, despite the horrible conditions in the camp, despite the fact that 80% of the Armenians who entered this concentration camp died and were buried there, two women create an orphanage in the camp and try to save as many children and orphans as possible. A large number of the deportees arriving in Ottoman Syria in this period were women and children, as many of the men were killed outright or were imprisoned or in exile. And here the role of the women becomes absolutely crucial. One particular example is that of Elmas Tsanturian. She was an Armenian nurse from Marash who is deported from her city and arrives in Aleppo. She gets typhus there and she spends weeks bedridden, and an Armenian doctor helps her and she gets better. Aleppo at this point is a place where there are thousands upon thousands of people, whether soldiers, whether local Muslims and Arabs, or deportees who have typhus, and every single day you have hundreds of people who are dying. Now, to be a nurse and to be cured of typhus makes you a very important person in Ottoman Syria during World War I. And she becomes this individual who is absolutely crucial because she can't get the disease again. What follows is that the daughter of the superintendent for the military hospitals in Aleppo gets typhus. And she becomes the nurse who takes care of the daughter until the daughter gets better. Now, the superintendent, whose name is Ramaz Bey, following this experience, makes her the head nurse of one of the military hospitals in Aleppo. As such, Elmas Tsanturian becomes this key, crucial person because she starts hiring other Armenian deportees and securing documentation for them, and thus anchoring them in the city of Aleppo and preventing their redeportation into the desert, which meant almost certain death. Another important example is that of two sisters who were midwives in the city of Aintab in the Ottoman Empire. These are the Nuritsa and Sifora Shnor-Hokian sisters. Beginning in 1890, they kept this meticulous record of every single child that they delivered in the city of Aintab. They were the midwives of the city. So, in all likelihood, most of the childbirths of the city were done by these two sisters. In 1915, as the Armenian population of Aintab is deported, these two sisters are not. And they're not deported primarily because they were extremely important and useful for the city. And so they continue on giving birth in the city of Aintab and entering, logging the information of every single childbirth. And we notice here how beginning in 1915, you have fewer and fewer Armenians who are being listed in the notebook, and increasingly more and more locals, Muslims, and others who are listed. Now, by the early 1920s, the environment becomes so dire and difficult that the two sisters are forced to leave, to flee at night with a few Armenian orphans and move to Aleppo. And again, they continue giving birth to hundreds and hundreds of children, of babies. And if you look at the list now, you see that many of these children were supposed to be born in ancestral Armenian towns and cities across the Ottoman Empire, whether it's Western Armenia or Cilicia. You see in these entries how, the parents are often from Adana or Arapkir or Diyarbakir or Van or elsewhere. So this becomes essentially a small microcosm of Armenian life following the genocide. The history of the humanitarian relief effort in Ottoman Syria is very closely connected with the names of several women, be they Armenian women or missionaries, Europeans and others, who play a crucial role during the genocide and in the aftermath. The women who were involved in this humanitarian relief effort included Armenians like Nora Altunian and non-Armenians, missionaries like Beatrice Roner, who worked together often. They in fact jointly created an orphanage and helped care for the orphans and tried to shield it from the intervention of the central authorities, who wanted to shut the orphanage down and deport the children to Deir ez-Zor. These examples really illustrate the agency of the Armenian woman at a time when the world has gone crazy, at a time when society is breaking down, at a time when families are broken apart, at a time when individuals are forced often to sell their children, at a time when rape, at a time when abduction of children is the norm. You see dozens upon dozens of Armenian women, missionaries and others, really rising up and really trying to salvage and save and change as much as they can. And it is thanks to their efforts that so many Armenians, particularly orphans and children, were saved. And it is thanks to their efforts that later on, as the war was over and the Ottomans were defeated, many of these communities were reconstructed, now in different parts of the world, and Armenian community life flourished again. In many ways, women were not just the saviors of thousands upon thousands of orphans and others, but also they were the backbone of the communities that were formed in the region and beyond in the immediate aftermath of the Armenian genocide.